how does this really, affect someone's health in a positive manner? Uh, playing these spiritual games, uh, or, knowing more about Indian tradition and culture.
It's not just about differences, but it's also about the fundamental similarities in what we eat, what we wear, how we speak, how we communicate. So that is the essence of India. When I step out of Tamil Nadu, I'm called a Tamilian. When I step out of India, I'm an Indian. So there is a responsibility for all of us to know about our neighbors, fellow Indians. So that gave birth to a game called Bharata Vilas.
When we think about health, the obvious things which pops up in our mind are doctors, hospitals, medicines, etc. But can there be a different way altogether to think about health? Well, in this episode, we spoke to Ms. Charanya Kumar. She is a highly qualified individual and she believes the same. She feels that going back to basics can help every individual regain health because there is an answer to every question in our Indian scriptures. She started a company called Chittam, which offers interactive and educational board games, activity books, card games, etc., through which one can learn more about Indian tradition, spirituality, our culture, etc. What a fun way to know more about our own tradition and our roots. Well, let's find out how going back to basics helped her regain health and how this can help you too. Welcome on the show, Sharanya.
Namaste. Thank you so much for having
Namaste.
me on.
Okay, Charanya, we were going through your profile, and then we found that you did your first graduation from University of Carolina. You have studied in CAD. You have a decade-long experience as well in corporate. What made you really, come back to India and thought of starting this unconventional business of Chittam, where you are, providing students with board games through which students or kids for that matter can learn about Indian tradition and spirituality. What was the thought behind that?
Thank you so much for starting the interview with that question, because that's what really sets the foundation for any kind of an interview that I give. Why this? Why now? Right? And to kind of go back 15, 17 years, I graduated with my BTech degree here in India. And I went on to do my master's. It was a very conventional thing, right? Like that's what everyone does. You do engineering and then you do your master's, which is exactly what I did. It's only when I left India did I truly realize the kind of education that I had had. I went to some of the brilliant institutions where I had amazing professors, but the practical application was still missing. Um, while I was able to cope with all of that, I had a lot of personal struggles through the journey. One thing that always differentiated me from my peers was my identity and my rootedness. I was able to bring that kind of content or design or that kind of thinking into whatever I did. So a lot of people would point out and say, where did you get that from? How are you working differently? And I always felt that I had to owe it to the kind of education that I had back in India. While I was getting exposed to different kinds of education abroad, I studied in France, Singapore, US, everywhere. I would see something marvelous and I'd be like, oh my God, why are we not doing this in India? So education was always, my passion, and I'd always wanted to do something. While this was happening, this was one frame of thought, that like a recurrent thought that kept happening. The second was, I have traveled to more than 32 countries, and everywhere I go, I would see them kind of projecting their culture in such a beautiful way. It might be something simple, uh, very, not much to talk about, but they would really be so proud of it. They would cherish it. They would talk about it in such an amazing way. And that again made me wonder, why are we Indians not talking about the amazing things that we have back in India? So these kept recurring, and finally I made a decision to come back to India because I'd always wanted to come back to India. I think the timing was right. My husband and I decided to move back after 11 years abroad. When we moved back, I was lucky enough to pursue my passion. I wanted to do something in the education sector, and that's when I started exploring skilling industry. Started working with a lot of schools in the underprivileged sector, in the rural sector, and to my astonishment, I saw that two words were very commonly used amongst school students, which was depression and stress. For me that was alarming because it was also around the same time that I was battling depression due to health reasons, and I felt this is not the age to be talking about depression and stress. So I started delving into my own life to see what has helped me overcome all the stresses and the depression that I had. And it was definitely the stories that I heard as a kid, the identity that I held, and the rootedness that was instilled in me when I was young. So started delving deeper, and I realized, okay, this is if this is giving me strength. And I started pitching this to many people around me, and they said, that's a very interesting story, why don't you try something? So that's when I said, okay, I'm going to take the Indic wisdom, which has given me the strength, the confidence to move forward and come out of umpteen struggles that I've had in my professional and personal life. I'm going to take that to the next generation, but in a way that they will relate to, in a way that will be fun for them. So that's how Chittam was born.
Okay. So you say that, when you are facing a lot of struggle and challenges in your life, and you get into, a space of spirituality, it gives you strength. It gives you strength to fight back and come out as a winner, right?
Yeah,
But, starting or making a business out of this is something like which is not very conventional, which is not very unheard of. Like it is very unheard of. Like people do not make very business out of this kind of space. uh, if you see people in the space of spirituality, they you see a lot of babas and people like that. But when you start board games, when you start card games, it is very 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 new, which is very unheard of. Again, as I said before. So how this particular idea really struck your mind that okay, I will go with this, go on to teach people, teach kids about like how to fight back through spirituality. I'll help them, connect them with Indian culture, Indian tradition, but through these particular card games, or maybe this particular way. Why not books? Why not anything else? We are anyways living in this age of computer, internet, and why board games? Why
right.
uh, card games?
See, it's actually it was a very straightforward decision. Your question seems very complicated, but actually it was not that complicated. One, because I knew what I wanted to do in the education industry. So I wanted to take the Indic wisdom. I wouldn't say only spirituality. I'm broadening the spectrum. Number one. So it's the entire thing of Indic wisdom. You take health, Ayurveda, you take mathematics, Vedic mathematics, you take anything, right? There's always a ton of literature that you can go back and refer to in the Indic wisdom about any topic. And I really mean it about any topic. You have the answers for almost every question that you have, including existential questions that science have not been able to answer. Okay, so you do, when you have those answers there, and the questions are getting more and more, uh, for me it was only logical that we had to match the questions and answers. That's one. Number two is, I'm not the first one to do it. So there are
Okay.
multiple companies who do it, and you would actually see, there are so many digital games also that are done in the backdrop of, let's say, Mahabharata or Ramayana, the wars of choras, cheras, pandyas, anybody, right? Like, so it's not brand new concept. People have been doing. As a matter of fact, Amar Chitra Katha is what? It's the Indic wisdom translated into comics, right?
Right.
I'm not the first one. I don't claim to be the first one either. And I am not making business out of spirituality, right? As I said, I am taking um, a very important knowledge base to the next generation in a way that they will appreciate and relate. And for me, I thought board games would be a good medium. And I did meet, even before Chittam, I was a co-founder with another organization which was into this. They were trying to make, but they were, you know, doing more of workshops. The problem with this space is people are very quick to talk about symbols and not about symbolism. So it's more about, oh, Lord Ganesha has a mushika under his feet. It's never about why is that a mushika. Why can't it be anything else? Right? Any other animal? Why can't it be a porcupine? Right? There were porcupines in India. Why not that? So that is where I want to target. It's very important that
Why even animal at the first place, for that matter, as a vehicle?
exactly, right.
So, please go ahead.
So um so for me, I it was and I did my masters. I specialized in game design. I did my MBA from
Okay.
one of the top universities in Seattle. And for me, it was like a no-brainer. I want to take this to this, and I wanted to build a sustainable model, and for which I had to generate revenue. And I didn't want to do this as a non-profit, because a lot of people are doing it, and unfortunately, I feel when you give something away for free, it's valued very less. So,
Right.
and I really want everybody to understand the value that our ancestors have left us. So, hence, it all culminated together.
Okay, so you started as a board game. Board game, mein, how does it really work? Like, do you have any sample to share with us on the screen, or maybe you can just let us know that how does this a
Sure.
particular board game or your card games work in order to educate kids about Indian culture, tradition, or spirituality?
Okay, so let me ask you a question before that.
Yeah.
Can you give me names of maybe three vegetarian dishes from Nagaland?
Sorry, what? Three?
Three vegetarian dishes, or even
Three
non-vegetarian.
vegetarian dishes from Nagaland. Sorry, I do not know.
Okay. Um, my
Same
second
in
question.
the
Do you know any
say
similarities between, let's say, Chhattisgarh and Tamil Nadu?
Chhattisgarh and Tamil Nadu. Okay. Nope.
So, um, and you're not the only one. About 95%, or even more than that, people cannot answer these questions about other states. But
Okay.
we are required, or not required, I would say, but we have to feel as one nation, right? We are,
Absolutely.
right? So that has to be something deeper than, let's say, just a music or anything. Even music is very different in different states. So we took this concept. If you don't know about your neighbor, how are you going to empathize with them? And
Right.
especially migration is such a big thing these days. We when COVID happened, we were all our hearts went out to all these migrant population who were walking on foot and all that. But little do we know about them, about their lifestyle, right? And all of this also defines your identity. When you step out of your state, you are, when I step out of Tamil Nadu, I'm called a Tamilian. When I step out of India, I'm an Indian. So I there is a responsibility for all of us to know about our neighbors, fellow Indians. So that gave birth to a game called Bharata Vilas. The gameplay is very simple. It's you just play it exactly the way you play Rummy, but it has a cultural twist to it. Instead of your four suits, we have taken one dance form, a weave, a monument, and a vegetarian delicacy from each state of,
Okay.
and you form sets, and in the process of playing we intrigue you to learn more about um, about the other states and what they do. It's not just the differences. Now I'll give you one example. When I was doing a bit of research for this, I realized that there's something called farah in the northern uh, India, and that's nothing but our amini korakattai that is made in Tamil Nadu, right? It's done exactly the same thing, exactly the same way. But I never knew that. If I were to travel somewhere, in Chhattisgarh, and I would be like, oh, what is this for? I don't want to eat it. But then it's something that, my grandmom makes at home. So it's not just about differences, but it's also about the fundamental similarities in what we eat, what we wear, how we speak, how we communicate. So that is the essence of India. That the diversity is the essence of India. Now that diversity and my ability to embrace that diversity, that's what makes me an Indian, right? And
Right.
that is what I'm calling rootedness. Now, by playing this game, will I know everything about every state in India? No. But would I have instilled that, that spark in that kid who is playing this game to know more about? I think yes. So that's one example of what one of the games that we have.
Okay. And any game, which is related to spirituality, like,
Yes, we do. So we have multiple actually. There's an activity book. So we all know about Bhagavata Puran, which talks
right,
about the life of Lord Krishna.
Lord
We
Krishna.
have taken Bhagavata Puran and we have taken stories from it, converted that into an activity book. So you have crossword puzzles, and you have picture clues, you have jumbled words. So, for example, we have a jumbled word. Do you know why Lord Krishna is called Damodara?
No.
So yeah, so there is a story behind
Okay.
every one of his names. So Damam means rope, and Uddiram
Okay.
means stomach in Sanskrit. So Damodara means the person with the imprint of the rope in his stomach. So there is a story behind how his mom Yashoda tied him to the Ural, and he dragged that and walked
Right. I
every
have heard about that story. Yes.
right. So we know the
And in
story.
doing so, a tree also
That
uprooted.
that's correct. That's absolutely right. So that's the story, right? Now you can tell it as a story to a child, but depending on
Hmm.
the age of the child, you explain why and all that. So the way I would explain the story is, when you are sitting with your phone or your TV and someone walks in, you don't greet that person. How would that person feel? And this is exactly what happened in that story. There were these two people, and Naradji walked in, and he was not greeted, and they were cursed. So you again relate it to what the children can understand. You pretty much bring it back, and so the story doesn't stay only as a story, right? It's not just an information at that point. It becomes a lifestyle. When something happens to the child, when a parent disciplines the child, saying that someone's come home, greet them, they are immediately
Hmm.
taken back to that story, right? They
Right.
understand the importance. So that is where these kind of games and these kind of activities come into play. Another activity that we have is the Likita Japa. We would have all seen our grandparents, great grandparents sit and write Sri Ram Jayam, right? They write it millions of times. Why do they do that? It's a form of japa. But if you ask a child to sit and write it, the child will call that an imposition, right? Because that's how our education system has trained us. So how do you change that? So Likita Japa, we have given a silhouette of Lord Krishna. We say, you pick whatever name you want to call Lord Krishna. Call him anything that you want. Now, start writing his name inside the silhouette in different colors. How many times can you write, or how many Krishnas can you fit into that silhouette? Suddenly, it becomes a
Okay.
challenge for the child. If the child is fully engrossed, the child is focusing to say, I want to write the tiniest Krishna inside that silhouette. So I want to be the winner, right? So you make it fun for the child. But ultimately, what is getting achieved is the child is sitting in one place, and it's a form of meditation. It's focus. That's what you're teaching.
Right. Right.
That's exactly how you take spirituality, you put a spin on it. You're teaching the same thing. I'm not saying, I'm not tricking the child into doing something. I'm saying, do write this, but then I'm just putting it as a challenge. So those that's another example. And we have a toddler kid called Naivedya. A lot of children ask this question, and uh, I've been subjected to this question a lot of times, especially from the toddlers. They're like, "Why? Why should I not give chakli to Ganesha? Does he not like chakli? Or why should I give modak to Ganesha? Why does
Modak.
he not
Right.
like Malai?" So these are the questions that I get. So, but the fun thing is, there is always a story behind everything. There are a lot of legends behind folklores, legends, Puranic stories, stories from itihasas, behind all of this. And unfortunately, not many parents know these stories to communicate that to children. So they also find it hard to get them into that religious thing or into that spirituality young. To a 2-year old, you cannot go teach spirituality. It comes
Right.
through
Right.
rituals, what you do. So Naivedya Kit is has a storybook which has taken 9 different stories. We talk about why Ganesha has given modak, why Krishna has given chakli, why Lord Kartikeya is given panchamrit, and things like that. So we've taken a storybook. We also have a matching coloring book, so children can hear the stories while coloring that. And we have also introduced a cute Gadotkaja, flat pack, which is very easy to assemble, and we have sheets of bundi. So at that age, children have to get their gross motor skills developed, fine motor skills developed. But every toy in the market, every game in the market that develops this gross motor skills or fine motor skills are all based on the Western knowledge. Or so I said, why can't we develop these things in our culture, having that cultural rootedness in these. So we said, we didn't want to do a god where children can throw things, because food is offered with respect to God, right? So
Right.
we
Right.
came up with Gadot Gaja, who is a lover of food. So Gadot Gaja, they have sheets of bundi. So they unroll the sheets, they roll it back, they unroll. Perforation is there, so they tear it. Again,
Okay.
developing motor skill and fine motor skills and gross motor skills. And then they crumble it. When you crumble a bundi, it becomes a laddu, right? Now you aim the laddu at Gadot Gaja's mouth from a distance. Again, hand eye coordination. And it becomes a fun game for a child. The child wants to keep throwing till he or she gets it right. But in this process, what happens is the child asks the question of, who is Gadot Gaja? Who is Gadot Gaja's mom and dad? Why does he eat so
Right.
much? Why does he like laddu?
Hmm.
When the questions are asked, there is a lot of avenue for the parents to introduce the story of Mahabharata, the valor of Bhima, the greatness of Hidimbi, what a great mother she was.
Right.
And then suddenly a whole new world opens up for the child, right? It's
So
exactly.
So
Yeah,
with these games, you are also providing students with, or maybe in that pack of card games or board games, you are also providing students with a lot of reading content as well, like in the form of stories,
absolutely. Yes, 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 absolutely. Every game
so
of
that
ours
say if
will.
I want to know more about Ghatotkacha, so how can I know that? He was the son of Bhima or Hidimbi. I know it, but what more than that I can know about or read about? Is there a lot of content given along with this games, or
Right.
how is it?
So we give enough content to intrigue the player. So for a child, see, this game is designed for a child between 1 and 5, right? The
Okay.
child is not going to ask too many questions
Hmm.
related to Hindi and Bhima. Let's be honest. So, but the child is going to be interested in this character. The
Right.
child is going to ask questions. The next time he or she hears the word Gadot Gaja, they are going to probably say, "Oh, I have that toy." Right? Today, you will not see a Gadot Gaja toy. Have you ever seen a Gadot Gaja toy? Or
Never.
for
To be
that
very
matter,
honest,
a Panchapandava's toy? You
nope.
wouldn't.
I haven't. I have those seen, of course, Peppas and whatnot of the world, but not, not of course, characters from Indian mythology, in the form of
You know,
toys. Other
yeah,
than
it's
yes, Lord
not
Krishna's, of
but
course.
yeah, again, see, now, even now, the things are coming up, but one, they are very slow to manufacture, because unless we show a product market fit, and once, it's a business thing, right? One, if I'm not able to sell what I'm making, it's tough to
Right, right.
sustain. So um, people are trying new things, different things. It's a very, very welcoming thing, but
So
there's a lot
now
of.
okay. So first thing, this is these whatever toys you are making. These are all targeted to the kids of between the age of 1 and 5, or there
No,
are toys for even elder students as well, or
no,
elder
no.
kids as well.
It's targeted for children between 1 and 16. But
Okay.
interestingly, a lot of adults have come back saying that they loved playing our games. In fact, the Sarathi activity book that I was talking about, where we have converted stories from Bhagavatam into activities, that book has been loved by senior citizens a lot. In fact, they
Amazing.
come and tell that, "Oh, I didn't know this story. Where did you get that from?" So it's very encouraging when we hear even the adults. See, the idea is not to just target children, and this we cannot do by talking directly to children. This is not a chocolate that we are selling. We need the help of parents, and as a matter of fact, we have to educate the parents also. A lot of parents do not know the answers to the questions that the children are asking, and hence, some of them take a shortcut in saying that, don't ask these questions, so they don't introduce that, or they just say something that is so irrelevant or so wrong that at certain point child realizes, "Oh, this is, you're just trying to fool me," and the child loses
Yeah, we were fed with the wrong information at the young age, huh? It
Exactly,
it
right?
happens
You
so.
don't want to do that. Yeah, you don't want to do that. So every game of ours, every kit of ours has been carefully crafted to bring the families together, to bring
Okay.
generations in the families together. So there's no game in ours where only the child could play or only the grandparents could play. Our aim is to bring different generations, because it's a sad thing, no, when you just observe families around you, children don't have anything to talk to their grandparents and vice versa. It's such a sad thing, in my opinion, because growing up, I used to go on a lot of tours with my grandmom, and I think she played a tremendous role in who I am today. And unfortunately, children are not finding avenues, topics to talk to their grandparents about. So these games hopefully will provide that as well.
So what I feel is that these games are not just working as a bridge between the parents, but also the grandparents, and as well as at the same time, um, that human touch. Because I feel that when you are in touch with humans, like like this, of, like, whatever you are discussing, and of course, if you are discussing some positive stuff, some positive content, in the form of course, play or whatever, it is not just rejuvenating you, but also maybe keeping you calm as well at the same time. Because we are talking about spirituality, because we are talking about Indian tradition, because we are talking about Indian culture and rituals, which were made at first place to sort of, like, keep us on the track. And they were maybe introduced whenever they were introduced, just to make us, walk on the right path. Okay, this is a way of living life. This is it is said that, art of living. So we were, like, introduced the art of living through these scriptures and whatnot. But in the absence of, finding a lot of logic here, a lot of people have started questioning, especially the young generation, that, oh, why should we read this, why should we do that? But maybe you are doing a very wonderful job, bringing back that old age scriptures and content and whatnot, and then introducing in a very new manner to our students, and not just the students, I would say, even the adults for that matter.
Right.
And yes, it is a wonderful job, I would say.
You. Thank you. It gives me a lot of joy doing that. Uh, I'm, and of course, I'm a student as well. I keep learning every day, uh, and it's that there cannot be anything better in my life than doing this.
Okay, so I know that, when you are into the space of spirituality, you tend to stay calm. Your health remains good. Generally, it is said. But how do you see this particular health angle, especially, I would say, uh, how does this really, affect someone's health in a positive manner? Uh, playing these spiritual games, uh, or, knowing more about Indian tradition and the culture through, of course, these games.
See, I will answer it from my own experience.
Sure.
And as I
Please go
said
ahead.
earlier on, Chittam was born from my experiences in life. So I went through a bout of depression following, multiple miscarriages. My health went for a toss. I was, physically unable to bear, the three consequent the miscarriages, and obviously, your hormones are gone for a toss. At that point, I know that when there is some kind of a stress, there is always a coping mechanism and an escape mechanism, right? Unfortunately, today a lot of people uh, resort to the escape mechanism. It could be alcohol, it could be, uh, anything. That's
Right.
how it starts. That's how really it starts. It either starts at that time, or it starts as a fun thing doing with friends. Anything, alcohol, smoking, anything for that matter. So these are all escape mechanisms. But what happens when you do resort to the escape mechanisms? When you come back, you still have to face the life, right? The life has to go on. So for me, I was very clear. My brought up was such that, I was so rooted. As I said, my grandmom played a very, very big role. My parents too, in shaping who I was, in making it very internal into me, on what is right and what is wrong. So that level of clarity, it is not to say that what I'm doing is right. It's not to say that. It's about saying, if I feel that this is right, it means that I am willing to live with the consequences of my actions. That is what is right and wrong. If
Right.
my heart says I am doing something wrong, no matter what, if I do that, at some point in my life I will regret it, right? But the same, I'm not talking about it objectively. I'm talking about it from a very subjective manner. So when I was going through a lot of stress myself and depression, what really helped me was thinking about something higher. For me, it is Lord Krishna. And for me, if someone says Lord Krishna is God, I would, you know, argue tooth and nail saying no. Because for me, it's a connection with some higher truth. For me, it is Lord Krishna. For someone else, it could be nature. It could be parents. It could be grandparents. It could be their family, wife, children. It could be their career. But it is that devotion towards that one thing that's never going to change. Because whatever I'm calling Lord Krishna, it's in my head, right? That's
Right.
not going to change. That Lord is inside me. That's how I explain spirituality, or that's how I would define spirituality to myself. So even today, I have read the Mahabharata and Bhagavata Puran so many times, but even today, when I'm feeling low, the first thing I do is go take, randomly I take a book, take Mahabharata, randomly take a chapter and start reading. Now, what does it do to me is all of our scriptures, number one, they are all in the question and answer format. So it it subconsciously nudges you to think and introspect, ask the questions, the hard questions to your own self. The questions like, why am I upset? Is it my fault? And things like that. Now, that is one part of it. The other part is, take both the itihasas, Ramayana and Mahabharata, and all the stories, right? It's all shades of gray. There's nothing
Right.
like this is a good guy, this is a bad guy. It's all shades of
No.
gray.
Right.
Suddenly, depending on the frame of mind you are in, something will turn out very differently in that book. One day you will feel pity towards Karna. The other day you'll be like, how could this guy, talk so righteous? He is doing all things wrong. And one day you'll feel so sad for that character.
Right.
What does this do to you? One, it temporarily helps you escape your problem, or at least that's what it does to me. It's like taking a Harry Potter book and reading, because it's fantasy, right? You just imagine something, it takes you out of your problems. But it is not an escape mechanism. When you come back to your reality, you have realized something different. You have something to mull over, something to ponder over. So, what more uh, can you have than something tangible in your hand, in your head, which helps you move forward in a positive way? That's what is spirituality, right? It helps you, it gives you an anchoring point. It helps you hold on to something while everything around you is sinking, or at least that's how we feel when things go bad, right? So that's how it happens to me. So I think by introducing these games, by playing these games, children are introduced to various characters, gods. See, that's why we have, the reason Hinduism is polytheistic is not because we fancy having so many gods. It's because for every person, different attributes, different things speak to us. To me, I might be impressed by Lord Krishna, but you might be impressed by Lord Ganesha or Shiva. People
Right.
who, that character is there. So you read whatever you want, but ultimately these are the fundamental things that reading these scriptures will do to you. So that is what we want to get at. So, and that happens only when we start putting these seeds in children when they are young, through games, through stories, through workshops, and all that. Long
And
answer, but I hope I answered.
and I feel that when you read these scriptures, um, or for that matter, Gita or Mahabharata, Ramayana, you tend to know about these characters in our Indian tradition. Um, you tend to not just learn, but also at times, in case if you are in any trouble, in case if you are facing any challenge, you get to get an answer also, that how you can maybe move forward in your life with your own problems. And when you have the answer to move forward in your life, I think then there is no problem. When there is no problem, I feel then there is no health issues as well. Like, there are health issues, of course, but or especially the mental health I'm talking about, not the physical health per se. But at least when you have these mental health issues, reading these books and scriptures may give you a lot of answers as well. And then when you get these answers, you tend to move forward in your life.
Just a small correction.
And
I
that's the
don't
whole
think
idea, maybe.
scriptures gives us answers. I think they give perspectives, which help you find the answers. Because I think spirituality cannot be fed. It's not something you take and say, "Oh, here it is." It's a journey, and giving you perspectives is what will help you get on that journey persistently. Um, and when you keep going, you find your answers someday. But then you will have to keep moving. And the stories and the scriptures give you that strength to move on.
Great. So I think we shall all keep moving in the positive direction. And on that note, really, it was pleasure having you, and it was really, a very fun and loaded with information, I would say, podcast. Thank you so
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks so much for
Charanya.
having me on the show.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.